MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey!
Do you think if they had done some plays for Davante Adams like Debo, because he was awesome today, but also just put him in the backfield, it doesn't feel like he would look like that. It just doesn't feel like it.
Well,
does it?
No, I mean, maybe the better way to ask that question is, who could you do it with that it would feel like that for?
Tyreek Hill.
Because Davante Adams is a wide receiver, and he's one of the best there is at a time when a great receiver can change the game, as he did until the Niners started treating him like Steph and box and won him the rest of the game.
Genius.
I mean, D'Amico and that defense was, after that first drive, incredible. Really was. They survived the Josh Norman possession. Yeah, give me a stat. Stat that.
Beside Davante Adams, no other wide receiver had more than 6 yards on the Green Bay Packers.
Well, Alan Lazard had 1 catch.
That's it.
That was the only other reception? Then they gave the end around to Equanimeous St. Brown or whatever.
Aaron Jones, a running back, had 9 for 129, and a huge part of that was the bomb that he caught for 75 yards. Devontae had 9 for 90. Lazard had 1 for 6. Mercedes had a catch, but he got 0 yards. So beside Davante Adams, 9 for 90, one other wide receiver had a catch that gained yards. That's pretty nuts. Now, Aaron Jones was very productive for him. Aaron Jones was really good today. The guy's good. The guy's a good player. But you had to get some more production out of your other. Like, the one thing with the 49ers is, Elijah Mitchell had some catches. Juwan Jennings had the 1 catch. Kittle had a couple catches. Now, granted, there just weren't that many. There were 31 total catches today, combined with Jimmy and Aaron. So it's somewhat limited. But still, I think the Packers, they got nothing out of anyone else.
Is it possible that D'Amico Ryan's a better defensive coordinator than Robert Saleh?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
I mean, the 2019 team was 2nd in the league in points allowed. Sorry. The 2019 team was 8th in the league in points allowed. This team is 7th. The 2019 team was 8th in the league in points allowed. This team is 9th. Okay. The 2019 team was 2nd in yards. This team is 3rd.
We don't fact check here, so who cares?
I think this team definitely has more challenges in terms of its secondary. And I don't think you can give D'Amico all the credit. Obviously, Chris Kasarik is one of the best at what he does to ever do it. I mean, it's just wave after wave after wave, right?
Guy, he's making guys that no one's ever heard of.
Well, he does for D linemen what Kyle Shanahan does for running backs.
Who are these guys? Who are these guys? Besides
Eric
the
Armstead,
two of them?
like you said to me, you said it. Eric Armstead's having the best year of his career, it feels like.
He is dominating right now. You want him on your team. He was not, I actually thought he was a little overrated in 19. He is not overrated right now. Like, he is a dominant force. Obviously, Bosa is an incredible force, but they are doing, the rest of the 6'7" guys are not people that are highly, if we just got access to 10 NFL teams, give you their rankings of defensive linemen around the league. The Niners group would not be high beside everyone else. DJ Jones is a solid player, but definitely the pass rushers, Jordan Willis, Ebukam, they got these guys for nothing. They're scrap heap guys.
Arden Key, Omenahu. Sorry.
It's nuts. It's D'Amico. I don't know if it's out of the realm of possibility that he gets offered a job.
I mean, what we don't know is how he interviewed. But he's got the pedigree.
He's really smart, and he's a high-level guy. I can't imagine he didn't interview poorly. He's
Yeah,
a player. The other thing is he's a player.
Yeah, he's got
one advantage I think he would have. He's talked to a lot of people as a player, right? Media stuff, interacting with coaches. A lot of times I think when coaches interview for the first time, D'Amico met, when he met owners? When he was drafted in the 2nd round, Defensive Player of the Year. He just talked to McNair a lot. And I don't know, when we traded for him with the Eagles, he's been he's comfortable around owners, right? It's kind of unique. I actually think sometimes players that make the transition probably crush some interviews, right? You just feel very everyone's making fun of McCown. I bet McCown's pretty comfortable in an interview setting. I'll promise you that. I bet Mike Vrabel was like, God damn, this guy's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sometimes if you're a coach, that's all you've ever had. That's the only way you've made. Like DeMeco made like $50 million. This
Right,
isn't the end all be all.
No, and his identity, like this is not going to be his only shot, right? He's pretty confident in that too.
How many head coaches is Kyle going to produce?
Well, what if was Mike McDaniel going to get a job this year?
Do you feel like DeMeco is now a lock to be a head coach within the next couple of years?
Yes.
Yeah, I do too.
Because remember what happened
feel like
with
it's
Saleh.
50-50. I feel like it's 50-50 right now.
Remember what happened with Saleh. Like 19 was so much momentum that after 20, they weren't as good as the year before, but he was just so high on the list.
He was the number one candidate.
Here's the other thing. Like, the first thing is just get in the room. If you're DeMeco Ryans and you're an impressive interview and the numbers speak for themselves, and Kyle Shanahan, it's his disadvantage is just a basic one. He coaches defense, not offense, right? If he was the offensive play caller, he'd been a head coach. Like they would have hired him the second the Niners lose, walk off the Lombardi Trophy or whenever their season ends. Immediately. That might happen anyway, but I mean, it's just to me with their secondary, it's a credit to them that Ambry Thomas missing the game was a negative because it actually gotten to the point where you felt like he was a valuable player for them. So they built him up enough that it hurt to lose Ambry. Then they've got to play. Josh Norman gets his moment. One-on-one with Devontae Adams. And he was a trail technique, John. As is normally the case.
Stay in his hip pocket.
I don't know if that's true or not, but he was right there, and you hold your breath, and there was no flag, and you live to fight another play. So, I mean, they just what they do with their pass rush, like you and I talked about during the game. I don't love all the moments they choose to blitz and how they choose to do it. It worked late against Dallas, obviously, and Aaron they created some pressure, and Aaron threw that deep ball, and it was Hufanga, and I forget who was on the backside. And it was, Aaron throws a gorgeous deep ball, and it's normally on target, and that's as off target a deep ball as he's going to throw into double coverage. It's just not typical. The ball hanging in the air. Maybe he was thrown into the wind a little bit too.
Pressing a little probably then too. Starting to feel like this thing's getting a little tight, right?
Well, I think it's a great point. I think that they thought it was over. I think Green Bay thought. I think Aaron thought it was over. And when they were knocking on the door, it looked like they were going to score a touchdown and go up 17-3. They eventually kicked the field goal after he gets sacked by Armstead. It's 10-3. But they're at I think it's before their first and goal play, and Aaron kind of comes to the line of scrimmage and just kind of got this smile on his face, like I'm in total control, which he is. He isn't like it's part of what makes Aaron great, right? Is like doesn't seem like his heartbeat elevates. And I thought the same thing. I mean, Lazard had the catch on 3rd and 3. It's first down. Then they get a false start. So it's 2nd and goal from the 10. They get 8, not enough. Then he gets sacked. Then they kick the field goal. As John Lund pointed out, they show A-Rod in the stands, A-Rod on the field, A-Rod in the stands wearing a Packers beanie, John.
Yeah.
But
with an absolute just dime. God, A-Rod.
Also wearing a Packer beanie.
He could just find some women. I guess if you sign multiple $250 million contracts in your life and you're a pretty good looking guy, you probably you walk into situations
and famous, rich, famous, good looking.
Yeah, but he's just had a lot of girlfriends in his day.
Yeah, he has. But I don't know. I don't know if the Packers. I think the Packers had to be a little bit surprised how hard it was for them on offense after that first drive.
I would agree.
They didn't have, they didn't have MVS in this game. Valdez-Scantling was out. Bakhtiari was out.
What isn't a huge part of football? Football. The NFL is such a scheme league. It's why I've really learned, doing this where you really talk. Like when I scouted, you weren't. I was like thinking about like takes. What's going to be. You realize that first couple drives aren't always indicative as the game because good coaches adapt.
The highest scoring rates are on the first drives.
Yeah, so they immediately changed their coverages of Devontae. They were throwing multiple guys at him. They were like buzzing Jimmy over there to like play underneath with the corner behind him and just doing different things that they didn't do on the first drive, which, the one thing you never know unless you were like on the staff or a player, and I wonder if staffs even tell players this, that like you set teams up, like just show them this and then maybe they get comfortable and then we'll flip this. Now, in playoff games that can be risky because every play in every touchdown is really valuable, and you saw this game. Like in this game, that first drive that they scored a touchdown was extremely fucking valuable. That was the score of the entire game. It was 7-0 and then 7-3 for the entire game. Like that touchdown, you could say, well, they're throwing a little curveball. Well, that could have been the final score. Easily could have just been 7-3. Like that could have been the game, which is very, very unlikely in like the history of the sport. Most times there's more than like that's not going to be the final score. I saw that the score potential for 14-8 that's never happened in the history of the league was on the table.
Scoregami.
Yeah, but D'Amico, now part of it is he did inherit really good players, right? I mean, they have just the core guys of Fred Warner, who's a max linebacker, who early in the game when the offense was atrocious. I mean, let's face it, they were really bad. They were not gaining any yards. They were not gaining first downs. No first downs. I mean, 4 drives, no first downs. Struggling to get were they going to gain a total of 100 yards of offense? These are the thoughts crossing your mind. Nick Bosa, who got a concussion 5 days ago or 6 days ago, and Fred Warner, who had an injured ankle. I thought those two guys specifically in the first half were kicking the shit out of people. Fred Warner, did you notice how hard that guy was hitting people?
First play, was it the first play of the game?
It was definitely early in the game. Maybe the first drive of the game, he had a tackle on a run play. You're like, damn, Fred's
it was
coming to play.
It was the third play of the game, yeah.
But I thought he had several plays throughout the game where it's like, Fred's kind of bringing his inner Willis Bowman in this thing tonight. Because you didn't really notice the other linebackers as much as him specifically, but those two guys, which were after last week, it's always cool to win a playoff game, the number one conversation was like, well, can they get their 2 best defensive players back? And they did. And they showed up to kick ass. I mean, how about the play? And I think even Aikman's like that effort to chase Rodgers down. And they showed the slow motion view, and Nick's just like, whoo, whoo, whoo. And then he does I love it when I love a good arm swing to hit the shoe, and they do falls. And I bet Rodgers a lot of times, like, maybe if Bosa's on the high end, not everyone catches him right there, and that's 6-7 yards. That was a huge play.
Yep. It felt like paws just swatting at his ankles.
How good is that guy? It's just, when you draft a guy number 2 overall, your hope of all hopes is he turns into, Devontae Adams or, Trent Williams. But the history of the league would tell us, like, if you just get like a really good starter, you're going to be okay. I know they really liked him, and everyone was really high about him. Even Steve Keim said when he drafted Kyler Murray, it was very, very difficult passing on Nick Bosa. He's better than advertised, and the hype on him was high. But he's better than the advertisement on him, and he had more hype than his brother because his brother had already helped build the hype. He's a dominant, remarkable player.
Well, and a couple things. As you know, you scouted, not every pass rusher plays with the motor that he plays with.
That's a huge part of his game.
So I think that's one thing. And the other thing is, like, let's talk about the guys we're talking about right now. Debo and Bosa. Like, these are guys that have had histories, right? Have not playing full seasons.
In college
and as pros. And this year they both delivered full seasons for Bosa coming off of a significant injury, right? Over the last 2 years, what he's been able to bounce back from.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot he tore his ACL last year.
So it's just, it's really impressive. It's really impressive. When you take away, I know, you can't do this, but let's do it. When you take away that 75-yard throw that Rodgers had to Jones at the end of the first half,
which was a true blown coverage to a running back, right? It wasn't to me it was a layup.
It's not like a bomb to Devontae.
Yeah.
He had 150 yards passing outside of that throw. That was a 75-yard throw. He had 225 for the game. So 150 yards passing outside of that play. That's, even in the snow, that's really impressive.
I do think though this, and this was my takeaway from that game. When you build a team, every single team, whether you play in the cold, a dome, the heat, you want Aaron Rodgers on your team. But when you have Aaron Rodgers on your team and you host playoff games, it's pretty clear the history of the sport. They play in these negative games. It neutralizes the passing game. Because I would say if they played this game in a dome, their greatest advantage is more to their advantage, right? It's harder. He made a throw today in the second half over the middle to 81. He just dropped it, just hit him. It's just hard to catch. It is hard. Like, I don't even blame anyone. I honestly, I wasn't even that mad at Kittle. It's hard to catch the fucking ball when you can't feel anything. It's really hard. And it's hard to play in that environment. And it's why I think, I want to get back into Kyle after we probably do a couple of ads, that when you build the team, like, you can win games in Lambeau. You don't need your quarterback to throw for 300 yards. Like, that's part of the reason Rodgers has lost all these games, and this is just another loss, and everyone's going to shit on him, because the guy beating him doesn't need to throw for 400 yards to outduel him, right? Part of, like, beating Rodgers, why it's so hard in, like, October, because he might throw for 400 yards, and they might score 32 points. So, like, can you score 34? And most people can't, even good players. Like, I was a little off. Fuck, Aaron Rodgers is hot. That's just not the case. Like, the Niners were able to do that with that performance from James Garoppolo, who, now, I don't even, if I was giving him a grade, be like B-. A lot of toughness and grit, but, the pick.
Yes. I mean, part of what you're trying to do.
Maybe I give him a B.
Well, I think part of what you're doing in those games, it's not necessarily that your quarterback's going to throw for 350. It is A, decision making, and B, there's gonna have to be a throw or two that needs to be made. Do you make it? And I think he knows what he's doing. His decision making is at times not in line with his physical abilities.
Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy. When you're saying you don't need that, like 350, big time.
But if I told you that Rodgers was the quarterback of the Colts, or let's just say like the Rams, and the Niners had to play them, part of like they beat Stafford a couple weeks ago is because Stafford threw the ball, like just did some passes. You're like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Rodgers wouldn't do that. And then the environment is just perfect. So it's just like, my environment's, it's ideal environment for throwing. I'm going to out-throw you.
Right.
It's like if it's a
Dak
non-windy,
wasn't capable of doing it last week.
No, not at all. It's like on a non-windy day at a golf tournament. If Tiger's on, no one has any chance to beat him. If the elements come in, maybe a guy could upset him or whatever. The elements neutralize Aaron Rodgers, who is the greatest player in the history, the greatest talent. Like, he's not the reason they lost. I thought he was good tonight, but he's not. It's impossible to throw for 300 yards. And as cold as it is. So the 49ers can just muck it up and ugly it up when they didn't have a first down for like the first 25 minutes of the game. Like, if that's a normal night, they're down 20-0, right? Like, if they're just playing that shitty.
Yeah. If the Green Bay Packers, it turned out, worked in their favor, right? That the Cowboys play where the Cowboys play, the Niners had to score and come back in that game. And that the Packers don't play where the Cowboys play.
Yeah.